So really excited to welcome to the stage. Next up, we have Maja Grubic, product engineer, to talk to us about digging into code, building fast, and doing it in small steps.
Thank you. What do you think? How many times a day do we ship code at Intercom? Do you have a rough estimate? 50? 80? Okay, I've heard a few numbers. So in the last 6 months, we've shipped code up to 81 times a day. So today, I'm going to talk to you, how do we ship code this fast while maintaining safety measures in place? Tech companies live by delivering software, right? That's what they do. Each piece of software they deliver consists of thousands and thousands of code. So in order to build world-class software, tech companies need to ship a lot of code. Different companies approach the process of shipping code differently. Usually, this process is shaped by the business needs of the company, who they are, what their product is, who their customers are, and what their place is in the market. When I first started my career, I worked in a company, let's call it Company A. Company A, yeah, I don't want to give the names. Yes. Company A. Company A didn't have its own product. It was delivering software for other clients. So in a way, software was its main product. When delivering software for clients, that means that deadlines are usually agreed upon in advance, and they're very hard to change. That also means that during development phase, we focus on writing the code. We want to get the product out, and we didn't focus that much on writing automated tests. Maintenance was something that usually came after the first version of the product was delivered, and it was usually charged extra. So how did the process at Company A look like? So, of course, we would start by writing some code. This was usually about 80% of the time that we had allocated for the project. That was usually about 2 to 3 months. After we had written some code, we came to a step that involved manual testing. That usually involved a separate QA team that would go through the product, make sure it works according to the specifications. Once they were done with it, they gave it back to us, and then we did a quick tech review that was reviewed by someone on the team, but who was not involved in the project directly, just to check if there are some obvious software malpractices and things that don't work. Once we were satisfied with the final product, it was ready to ship. So we shipped the product, and project managers were very happy, but things did go wrong sometimes. So what did we do in situations when things went badly? So first, we started by finding the root cause of the issue. If it's a bug, we would go and we would apply a bug fix. And then later on, the process was pretty similar as before. We wrote some code. We involved the QA team for testing. We did a quick tech review. We shipped the code. And this time, we also prayed that it works correctly. So how was working in Company A like? Well, the process of development was super fast. So I had really an allocated time of just developing with very little interruptions in between. Right? I would write code and only occasionally update my project manager about the status of the project, and that was it. But the process was not very safe. Once I spent the entire Christmas in the company trying to fix a bug that I shipped 2 days prior to Christmas. So while my family was at home enjoying dinner and drinking wine, I was sitting there alone in a cold office trying to make the thing work again. Very profound experience, but I wouldn't recommend it. And finally, when I just joined, I wasn't allowed to become a part of this process for 6 months. So if you asked me what I was doing 3 months in the company, I would have told you, oh, I'm taking screenshots, because they gave me a task of writing some documentation that involved taking screenshots. After Company A, I moved to work for Company B. Unlike Company A, Company B had its own product. It was developing services that are used as infrastructure for other companies. So when developing that kind of services that are used as infrastructure, the uptime of the service is very important. So it's important that those services always work and that there's very little downtime, because every little downtime can lead to a loss of trust from our customers. So Company B had a very lengthy process in place that made them secure that very little outages would happen. So the process started similar. We would write some code, then we would submit that code to code review to one of our peers. Then once that was done, we would deploy the code to a pre-production stage. On pre-production stage, some tests would kick in and run. Those were unit tests, functional tests, integrational tests, all sorts of tests that we could write. And then it would just sit there for about 2 weeks. Why? In the meantime, we got to a process of writing a document. This document was an explanation of what are you about to deploy? What are the business impacts of the changes that you are about to deploy? What are the operational impacts of what are you about to deploy? How can you minimize the risk of something going wrong? And what will you do if something does go wrong? This document then needed to be reviewed by 1 or 2 of our peers on the team and the manager. So it was like a formal agreement that we are really going to ship this soon. And then finally, before shipping, we had to execute another set of manual steps just to run through the whole thing once again and make sure nothing is obviously broken. And then finally, we were ready to ship. So this process was designed to be extra safe, but still things did go wrong sometimes. So what did we do in situations when things did go wrong? Well, first of all, we usually rolled back immediately the changes, but sometimes it wasn't very easy. For example, if you just deployed a UI change that was already seen by customers, you don't want to roll back. That would lead to a very poor customer experience. So then we decided to roll forward, which means work on a bug fix as fast as you can to get it out. So my team once spent the entire night in the office trying to fix the bug that they just shipped. Sometimes it wasn't very obvious what broke the build, because you just deployed numerous commits, and first you needed to identify what the root cause of the issue was. So then, of course, you'd go down to bug fixing and then basically repeat all the process that I just previously described. You write code, you do a review, test, and deploy. So process in Company B was designed to be extra safe, and it was. I think that in 3 years, as long as I worked there, I hadn't shipped a bug that would really cause a major outage or that would be a cause for a rework. But I also didn't ship as many features as I would have liked, so the process was slow. And I didn't really like writing documents. We engineers, we like building things. We don't like spending time writing documents. And that sometimes led to copy-pasting of the documents and reducing the level of safety that they were initially designed for. And finally, although there are no official barriers of engineers getting involved in the process, it still is a process that you need to get familiar with. You need to get used to how to write these documents, what's the appropriate format, how do we get this manual testing steps in place and things to work. And then about 3 months ago, I joined Intercom. At Intercom, I shipped a feature in my first week. And to be honest with you, before joining Intercom, I was petrified. When they told me, oh, you'll need to ship something in your first week, having just come from Company B, I said, there's no way I can do that, right? Nobody can do that. And I had this lengthy discussions with myself. Well, maybe this Intercom thing wasn't such a great idea. But OK, I did it. So just before I go on, how many of you are familiar with our Educate product? OK, quite a few. So Educate is our self-service support product. Here is a screenshot of Intercom's help center. Of course, I don't build the whole thing in my first week. Otherwise, this talk would have a totally different tone. So when customers go and browse our help center site, they were complaining that they cannot go back to Intercom's website. Or in case of our customers' website, there was no easy way to navigate back to the original website. So I added a link in the upper right corner which says, oh, go back to Intercom. So what process do we have in place that enabled me to do this in my first week? So our process starts by setting a feature flag. Feature flag is a simple mechanism that enables us to control who has the access to the feature. After we set the feature flag, we write some code. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. After we've written some code, we submit a code for code review. We use GitHub for all our code and for all the pull requests. So we request review on GitHub. While we are waiting for a review, automated tests kick in. So we have a bunch of solutions that test our code against the tests. And once the code has been approved and the tests have successfully passed, we are ready to merge into the master branch. Once the code has been merged into the master branch, tests kick in again, and they're executed again. And while the tests are running, Muster receives a notification that it's ready to deploy. So Muster is our internal deployment tool. It was developed during early days of Intercom, mostly because there were no other commercial tools available at that time. Now it has become much more than a deployment tool, and it's an integral part of our process. So Muster receives a notification that it's ready to deploy, and here we are ready to ship. Now you must be thinking, oh, this works well if you have just the link, right? But it's not true. We take big projects and we break them into small parts. You've already heard some of this from Flora on how we iterate on our product. So we always try to ship the smallest meaningful parts. So what is the smallest thing that we can provide for our customers that will have value for them? Then by setting feature flags, we expose functionality only to a certain set of users. So we have control who sees that feature. You remember how I said that sometimes if you ship a UI feature that is seen by a large audience, it's not very easy to roll back. So we try never to get into that situation where we expose the feature too early to too many people. And then we collect feedback and iterate. Of course, we do face some challenges with this approach. So our deployment is as fast as the tests are fast, and as our code base continues to grow, tests continue to grow as well. So we try to approach that by parallelizing tests and making them into fewer smaller chunks so that they can run faster. And as someone who works primarily on the UI, I've seen some CSS changes that will break and that even the most sophisticated UI tests won't catch. So sometimes the manual testing is still necessary in order to catch those changes. So if there are some takeaways that I would like to give you tonight, the first one is don't sacrifice speed over safety. Of course, don't do vice versa. And that's one thing I think we're doing very well at Intercom, that we are keeping this pace while maintaining safety measures in place. Second thing is that engineers like to feel productive. They like to feel as a part of the process and not afraid of it. Third thing is make sure that your bug fixes are ready to ship. Nobody wants to spend the night trying to fix a bug and then wait another 2 days to get it deployed out there. And finally, writing tests can be tedious sometimes. We sometimes don't like it. But having good tests in place gives us confidence that our code is safe to ship. And it's much easier to spend 2 hours writing tests than having to spend Christmas trying to fix the thing that should have been caught by the tests. Thank you.